What's up, everyone? It's Adar coming at you with another episode of Startup Engineering Daily. Let's hop right into it. Our first story of the day is from Walden at Cognition, and they're announcing that they have a new code review tool in Devin. Devin was one of the first AI coding systems that came out way back in the day, and they got a lot of flack. A lot of people were roasting them, but they do have a bunch of crazy mathematicians on the team. And one of the highest ranking lead coders, I believe, also is the CEO. And I think they also bought Windsurf after the weird OpenAI acquisition that went through. But as you can see here, they're launching a new UI for reviewing PRs that kind of uses AI to help you drill down, review some of the issues, and potentially kind of have a built-in AI PR review. I know that you have the GitHub comments, but this seems kind of similar where it's kind of a real-time chat as opposed to having to comment back and forth with GitHub's horrible UX and infrastructure. And while it is in preview release, it seems that it is free to use, so that is cool. I don't use Devin. I don't know any professionals that use Devin, but I think they do have over 100 million ARR, so someone's got to be using it. And if you are, this could be something cool to check out. Next, we have an announcement from Remotion, which is a library for building videos with code. And as you can see here, they've released a new agent skills. A lot of companies have been doing this, like Vercel, Expo, and now Remotion. And Remotion's really cool because you can use code to make videos. And using Claude here, you can see you can ship videos that would normally have to be edited in After Effects or a similar program where you can do very complex animations, but here it's all written in code. And you can see here the example of the video that they were making in this demo. And definitely I want to try it out, use it for maybe some history videos or something to animate, or even product promos could be very interesting. You can see here it's not one shot, right? They're doing a lot of prompting in this video, which is interesting to see because it's not quite clear if they could have just packaged a whole script and made it work, but it's really cool to see these skills coming out. I actually think that skills are still in their infancy. I mean, obviously, but it's so weird to me that we have this NPX skills ad, which just downloads it from the GitHub repo, but it doesn't keep it in sync is my understanding. So if they change these skills, you kind of have to know and be updated to fetch them again. I could be wrong. Maybe Vercel's skills, which is the skills package, does have auto updates, but I actually don't believe so. So I have been thinking a lot about how skills really should be cloud driven, where you kind of fetch it from an API to load it. You can do performance, you can review it, you can keep it updated, have different versions. But it seems like for now, people are still cloning into their repos, which is interesting. Here we have an announcement from Beto at Expo saying that you can now switch to a different update at runtime. When this was first sent to me by my colleague, I thought, wow, this is really cool. You can switch between different runtime versions on the same app. But no, this is actually a bit more nuanced, which is it's actually channels. So if you have a production channel or a preview channel, for example, you can have your employees is the example they use. They can switch between preview and production to test different things out. But if the runtime version is not in sync, then it won't work. So this isn't quite the real-time update experience that you would get from the web, for example. But it is cool to have more flexibility with being able to switch between the different channels in Expo, but you still do have to do a production push to release new native stuff, of course. And also you will have to be particular about which builds you put on channels to make sure that users are receiving the right thing. But it is a cool bonus for testing and maybe even A/B testing as well. Here we have a tweet from Jared Sumner, who is the founder and CEO of Bun. They've now been acquired by Anthropic, which is really awesome for them. And I know that they're really enjoying life. But he's replying here to Prime, who I actually watched a video of today with Lee Rob, and they were talking about AI and vibe coding and all that. And Prime is definitely the super AI hater right now, complete opposite of Theo. He thinks it's all just pushing bugs and tech debt and is horrible. And Lee Rob commented on that as well, where you do have to manage the tech debt of the AI coding and making sure that you're not pushing trash. And the code is still for humans to read. So it's not like it's just for the LLMs. There is still that human synchronous code review process that needs to happen, which I have talked about in previous videos. But what Jared says here is that in Bun's repo, they've merged at least 84 PRs from Claude since last month, which is awesome. And he's saying that automated LLM PRs are suggestions. You don't have to feel guilty about ignoring it, and it has to prove that the code clearly works. He's also saying GitHub should consider adding a PR status label less than draft, which is interesting because I think draft and being ready for PR are not quite exactly rankings. They're more about status, but there's definitely something here because I've talked about, I think PR review is still synchronous and it has to be done by a human. So when the AI is pushing trash, that is very unfortunate, but we're only going to get better at reviewing this code. And you also have to make sure the prompts are right. You have to make sure your skills are correct and the Claude MD or whatever you're using internally, Agents MD, is correct, and you're updating it as you learn things from the way that it produces code. So for example, I have a So for example, I have a code base where I've noticed that Claude was pushing a lot of really long functions, like 500 line functions, which is way too long, obviously. It's doing transaction processing, it's doing these important things, but it should be isolated into small functions, and it kind of gets back to clean code per Uncle Bob, where it's like if you have unit tests and you have really clean private functions, it makes it very easy to review from the human perspective of going into GitHub. Okay, here's the composition of this main function, and then go into each private function and see exactly what it does. Makes it a lot easier to review compared to just reviewing a whole block with comments. And since we're taking advantage of the LLMs, it doesn't take any more time. They can build the unit tests where needed. I still don't think you should unit test private functions. I think you should only unit test the public endpoints, but I think you should only unit test the public signatures, but that's besides the point. However, I do think we have to really focus on making sure our prompts are writing very, very clean code, very small functions, and then it makes it a lot easier to evaluate the PR from a human perspective, which I do think is a blocking task, as I've said. And lastly, we have an announcement from Claude yesterday, but I just heard about it today, which is they now have a VS Code extension for Claude Code. This is their attempt at competing more with Cursor because you couldn't actually view files within Claude Code. I guess they decided we don't want to fork our own IDE, so let's just build in directly to VS Code. People are liking this experience. However, I have heard there are some bugs and it's still being refined. I wouldn't necessarily try these things on the first day, but it is cool that you can now access Claude from within VS Code. I do think the file viewing is important, and even writing manual code if you want to could be important, but personally, I'm still staying in the terminal for now. If this kind of stuff interests you and you want to talk with some like-minded people, join the Audinato Discord in the description. Thanks.